Hello, I'm Karl Wells. Since 2017, my guest today has been devoted to providing spiritual guidance and religious teaching to the Jewish community of St. John's. He is also providing humanitarian services to our wider community in the city. And I thought we'd ask him along to talk about his life and his work in our city. It's my pleasure to welcome Rabbi Chanan Chernitsky. Welcome, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Now, when people hear you speak, they may detect a slight accent, and that's because you were born in Argentina and lived in Buenos Aires for the first 13 years of your life.
Correct.
Can you describe for us what your life in Argentina was like up to the age of 13?
Life in Argentina was very pleasant. We were upper middle class. We lived very comfortably. All of our family practically was in Argentina. We saw our grandparents once a week. We saw our aunts, uncles, cousins on a regular basis. Got together for Jewish holidays with family. I went to private school all the way through high school, which included the last 2 years in Argentina, so we were quite privileged. Life was pretty good in that sense.
So were you, at that time, unilingual? Did you only speak Spanish?
No, so in Argentina, every school teaches English as a second language.
Oh, I see.
So I already had a strong English from Argentina.
Right. And tell me about your parents.
Well, my parents are wonderful people. My father is an industrial engineer. So in Argentina, he was working with my grandfather, who owned a company that sold industrial ovens. My mother is a gym instructor in Argentina. She was 100% self-employed, just working out of her broad living room, giving classes.
Mm-hmm. Now, in your teen years, you made a dramatic transition, if you will. Your family moved from Buenos Aires to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So here you were in the north, not the far north, but quite far from Argentina, and different culture. I doubt that there was very much Spanish spoken in Winnipeg. Quite different from what you were used to. How did you manage to adjust to this new way of living?
It wasn't easy. So I was in grade 9 when we moved to Winnipeg. I was starting grade 9. And it was a tough year. I didn't have a lot of friends. It took a while until we got used to the Canadian way of being and idiosyncrasies. On the other hand, there are a lot of Spanish speakers, immigrants from Spanish-speaking countries in Winnipeg. Like when we moved, there were a number of Argentinian families, so that definitely made it easier and cushioned the blow in a way.
So why Winnipeg? Did your dad find a job there, or?
No, my parents actually moved without having a job. They just wanted that for such a significant move to a new country, new language, to start off at a smaller city. And they said if we wanted, we could always move to another city later on.
Now, you said that your parents weren't especially religious, and that it was when you were in high school that you became interested in your religion. What was it? What was this epiphany, if you will, that caused you to want to learn more about your Jewish faith?
Right. I don't recall there being one big epiphany. It was a very slow process. It took a number of years until I became fully observant. At the beginning, it was just a curiosity. In Argentina, we hadn't been as exposed, me and my siblings, to Jewish teachings. We hadn't gone to a Jewish school. You know, I didn't have a regular quote-unquote bar mitzvah, right? Coming of age for a Jewish boy when he turns 13. For a girl is bat mitzvah when she turns 12. So I didn't have the training. I didn't have a celebration. I didn't have any Jewish knowledge, practically speaking. When we moved to Winnipeg, my parents sent me and my older brother to the Jewish day school, and I started studying Jewish subjects, Jewish topics, and that developed an interest, curiosity, and I started reading books from the library, and slowly it grew from there.
What did your parents think of this?
So at the beginning, you know, I was just reading books, but when I started actually changing, you know, my day-to-day observance, taking on more commandments, my mother thought that I was brainwashed, you know, that I was crazy. But thank God, you know, with time, all tensions ceased, and today we have a very good, healthy relationship, especially once we had children. And my parents come to visit us a number of times a year from Winnipeg.
Okay, so they've been here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So from high school, you went on to receive your post-secondary education, but that was all directed, from what I can understand, toward rabbinic ordination. Am I correct?
Not quite. So a Jewish place of study, what we call a yeshiva, is not vocational.
Okay.
So a person does not study in a yeshiva to later on become a rabbi or any other job, you know, within a Jewish circles, Jewish traditional circles. Rather, there's an appreciation for study in and of itself. So many of my friends went to university first, then went to study Jewish studies in a yeshiva, and then they went on to work. Nothing to do with Jewish studies. For myself, all the Jewish studies that I did all built my repertoire, so I was able to pursue rabbinic studies later on.
Mm-hmm. And you studied in the United States and Europe, I believe.
Also Canada. So right after high school, I spent 3 years in Morristown, New Jersey at the Rabbinical College of America. Then I spent a year studying in Montreal, the Chabad Yeshiva Montreal. After that, I went to Venice, Italy to pursue rabbinic ordination.
So when you were in these various places, did your fellow students come from all over the world, or
pretty much
areas?
Pretty much, you know, in Morristown, New Jersey, could have been the United Nations. You know, there were other students from Argentina, some from Brazil, Israel, Russia, of course the States, other Canadians from all over.
Wow. So in 2012, your ordination was conferred. How did that feel? Did you feel joy, trepidation, what?
It felt really good. It was a very special moment. And yeah, you know, at the moment, I wasn't planning to be the rabbi of a congregation. It wasn't like, okay, now I'm a rabbi, now I have this big responsibility. It was just satisfaction that I was able to reach that occasion.
So if somebody were to ask, how many years do I have to study to become a rabbi, what would the answer be?
There's no standard. There's no standard amount of years. It's really, you know, once you accumulate the knowledge and you're tested, then you could do it. Somebody that's very gifted, in theory, could do it in under a year.
So there is a test or an exam that you have to pass.
Correct.
Before you're ordained.
That's right.
Okay, that's interesting. So you are Orthodox, and it's been my impression that Orthodox Jewish people more or less keep to themselves, or am I talking about Reform Jewish people? Can you explain to me the difference between Orthodox, Reform, and conservative Jewish people?
Sure. So you're speaking about three different denominations in the Jewish world. I personally don't like the word the Orthodox. There's a lot of stigma and judgment attached to it. Let's use traditional for our discussion instead of Orthodox. So you have traditional, sticking to the Torah the way Moses received it to Mount Sinai. You probably heard the story, 3,334 years ago. Then Reform developed in Germany as an offshoot of the Enlightenment movement in the early 1800s. And then Conservative was almost a response for people that were not traditional, were not Reformed, somewhere in the middle, and that was developed in the United States. I believe it was in the middle or early 1900s. And so, again, so let's go back. Traditional, sticking to authentic Judaism, not watering it down, not changing anything. Then Reform, as the name goes, they reformed Judaism. They made changes in the prayers, in the customs, in the laws. And then Conservative wanted to be people that wanted to be more traditional, but not all the way, and not Reform all the way. So somewhere in the middle.
And you are traditional?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the Jewish community in St. John's? Are there traditional Jewish people here and conservative people, or what?
Very good question. I wouldn't say there's other traditional people. The synagogue on Elizabeth Avenue would be called conservative. But there's also a group of people that get together, the Chabura, that is Reform.
And it's those services which you would conduct, I guess.
Correct. I do need to add that just because our services are, keeping to traditional Judaism, doesn't mean that somebody who sees themselves as aligning with a conservative or with Reform, or they think of themselves as secular, is not able to attend.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Why do you wear black?
First of all, I like the color. That's just. But
I wasn't expecting that answer.
No, I'm only kidding. One of our daughters asked me one day, "Are your favorite colors black and white?" Because I wear black and white every day. The answer is that in traditional Judaism, we don't like to change. And so we usually honor old customs. So we dress the way people dressed in Europe in the 1800s or early 1900s.
And what about the hat?
So the hat also, it was part of the traditional dress back then. It's also Kabbalistic reasons. Going back to your previous question, in general, there's a thought in Judaism not to dress in a flashy way, not to dress in a way that calls attention, but to dress simply.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you were ordained in 2012, but you didn't work as a rabbi until you came here in 2017. Why did you wait 5 years?
Very good question. The simple answer is that I wanted to continue studying before taking on an official position. And so 2012 is when I was introduced to my wife. We got married. We moved to Montreal, and I continued my studies. And once I was done studying some more, then we started looking for a place.
Mm-hmm. And why St. John's?
Okay, good question. I like to say that we got on the wrong flight, or that we wanted to go to St. John, New Brunswick, and we came here. But what happened was that we were looking for a place to move to for a while. Nothing was working either from our part or from the other side. And I said to a friend of mine who lives in Toronto, please keep your eyes and ears open. If you hear of any positions, any openings, please let me know. And so my friend got back to me soon afterwards, and he said, there's somebody who has some business in Newfoundland, and he feels that Newfoundland could use a permanent rabbi. So my friend put us in touch, and we came here, me, my wife, and then our 2 children, We were here at the end of January 2016 for the first time. We did 2 programs for the community connected to a Jewish holiday that was happening then. And we saw, we can't make a decision just on this week that we were here. So we came back March and April in 2016 to be here for 2 other major Jewish holidays, Purim and Passover. And so after that, we saw that the Jewish community is more robust than we thought. There is what to do here. And we spent the rest of 2016 raising the seed money to be able to move. And February 2017, we took the plunge.
And you've been here ever since. And I assume you believe that you made the right decision and that you're quite happy here.
Yes, never looked back.
Good. Having said that, and having lived in Buenos Aires, New Jersey, Winnipeg, Montreal, Venice, this is a very different place. Now, for you, it's one thing, but then you have a wife and children. What's that transition been like for them, coming here?
It's not easy. We don't have any family here. When we first came, we didn't have any friends. Now it's a lot easier. Thank God we know a lot of people. We have some good friends that are like family. But you can't compare our life here to our life in Montreal.
Mm. Well, I imagine just in terms of, you have to keep to your traditional ways, and there are dietary laws that you have to maintain, adhere to. What do you do about food?
Okay, so we are fortunate that the majority of the products that we use you could get them anywhere, and they are going to be kosher certified. I could almost bet to you, Karl, that in your house, most of the products are kosher and you don't even know it. Mm. The way you know a product is kosher is that on the package, it will have a kosher symbol from one of the kosher certifying companies. You need to know that the company is reliable and so on. But for example, rice, pasta, tomato sauce, most of them will have some sort of kosher certification. Vegetables, fruits and vegetables are fine. But meat and chicken have to be slaughtered in a specific way. Mm-hmm. That's something you cannot buy here. And we ship that in from Montreal, comes in a frozen truck.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. When I was a child, we had a very large Jewish community in St. John's. I would say there were probably over 1,000 Jewish people living here. And over the years, because people pass away and people move, what have you, children move away, the numbers have dwindled. Do you have any idea what the size of the Jewish community is here now?
We estimate that there's 500 Jews in the whole Newfoundland, most of them in St. John's.
500 for the whole of the island?
Yeah. Okay.
So, in terms of your work, you provide what kind of instruction and guidance, spiritual guidance, to our Jewish community? What is it that you do for them, and what do you do for the wider community in St. John's?
Okay, so for the Jewish community, we have events for every Jewish holiday. We host people in our house for the Sabbath, Friday night and Saturday morning. We have children's programs. We have a Jewish children's book club. They get a Jewish themed book every 2 months. I have classes. I study with people one-on-one every week. I also have classes with a group of people every week. And everything else in between, we're always on call. Somebody needs something, we always are happy to help and try to help as much as we can. And so for the general community, I would say we have 2 main projects going on. Number one is the moment of silence. Some of the listeners might be familiar. What it is to try to have 60 seconds of silent reflection at the beginning of the school day in all schools across Newfoundland and Labrador. And during the 60 seconds, the school children should be thinking about a positive value shared to them by their parent or guardian. And what's great about the 60 seconds, Karl, is that you're not putting religion into schools. It's only 60 seconds away they took away from instruction time. And there's strong anecdotal evidence that from this just 60 seconds, there's a tremendous boost in the mental health of the students, reduced stress in the schools, and more importantly, less youth crime and substance abuse. So that's moment of silence. Then there's Friendship Circle, which is a subsidiary of our main organization, Chabad of Newfoundland. So Friendship Circle does programs and events for special needs children and their families. So within Friendship Circle, there are 3 programs happening right now. There's the one big monthly activity open to any child or youth with a disability and their families. Think about it like a big birthday party for children that don't get invited to parties, they don't get to go to after school clubs. And we try to cater to any and every disability, you know, whether it's Down syndrome, epilepsy, autism, cerebral palsy, etc. One of our events last year, in April, we had a sign language interpreter, since the number of deaf children that attended, just to give you an example. Also, we have a pen pal project, where special needs child anywhere in Newfoundland could get a letter at least once a month from one of our volunteers. So right now we have children signed up from coast to coast. Most of them are St. John's, some, you know, Mount Pearl, Paradise, CBS, but also there's 2 children in Port aux Basques. So from coast to coast, the children receiving letters. And the last project for a moment of silence is the Friends at Home, which entails 2 community volunteers visiting one specialist child at their house for 1 hour every week, just to have fun, help them with homework, dance, play games, whatever they might want to do together. So registration for that one is now open. It didn't start just yet.
And something which I think is extremely important is you do a Holocaust speakers series, do you not?
That's right, thank you, that's right. We also have our yearly Holocaust speaker series. Before COVID, we used to be in person, we used to fly the person or people in. So the last time we had it in person, 2019, we had Mark Biederman. It was at the Holy Heart Theater. We had almost 500 people, and most of them, you could imagine, are not Jewish.
Of course.
And we think it's wonderful. You know, people feel for you know, being against hatred, against intolerance, against any form of racism. And it's a wonderful thing.
If people wanted to find out about all of these things that you do you have a website, or is there a place online where they can find this information?
Good question. So the best place is always Facebook. We'll have the most, you know, the latest information. So Chabad of Newfoundland, spelled Chabad, C-H-A-B-A-D, of Newfoundland. Search for that on Facebook, you'll find it. Friendship Circle has its own Facebook page. Our website, which is Chabad, C-H-A-B-A-D, NFLD.org, will also have all of this information. It just usually gets updated later. So Facebook will have the latest information.
So how has all of the work that you do for the Jewish community and the wider community been received?
Well, I would say it's been slow in growth. You know, we're always breaking the ice. Here's a newcomer bringing fresh ideas, different ideas. But, you know, we've been 5 years plus or here already. So looking back, things are, I think, thank God, doing great.
Just to close, perhaps, you know, it's not great to end on this note, but I'd like to ask you, you know, there's evidence that anti-Semitism is on the rise in North America and in many other parts of the world. What can we do to stop this hatred?
It's not an easy solution, but what we're doing with Moment of Silence is in essence a solution. What that means is that every person should realize that they have an important job to do in this world. When a person feels empty, when he doesn't have a sense of purpose, a sense of identity, then he looks for people to blame. That's where the hatred, the intolerance comes from. If a person is fulfilled, if a person is happy, if he has a sense of mission, and he realizes that I'm a cog in the big machine of the universe, and I'm essential and I'm important, then he's not going to go looking for someone who looks different than him, has a different religion, to hate. So if you're happy with yourself, if you're grounded, then you mitigate hate.
Well said. Thank you very much for being on the program. I've enjoyed speaking with you.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
And I wish you all the best in the work that you have yet to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. My guest has been Rabbi Chanan Chernitsky, and that's it for this edition of Karl Wells Point to Point. See you again next time.